Welcome again to Around the Diamond. I'm Marvin Jackson here, and joining me is Dwayne Sims, and he is the founder of the Negro League Legends Hall of Fame. And always a good time having you back on Around the Diamond, man. It's always good.
Thank you so much. Always. My pleasure to come and visit, even by this
All
way.
right, you have a lot going on. You got a big event coming up, but let's talk a little bit about your organization, your mission.
Yes, I've been existing since 2003. And around in 2002, I got introduced to so many Negro League players when finally the Congress and the Senate came together and actually recognized there was a Negro League and their contribution. So I was there with J.C. Watts, Rick Satorum, and also our very own Barbara Mikulski. And they were part of that project that finally have a resolution written to recognize their contribution. And I'll always say to American baseball history. I think what is lacking most of the time when people talk about history, yes, we had black baseball, we had the colored professional league in the early days, but in the early days, they also played integrated. A lot of people didn't realize that. You go to a small town, I met somebody up in Eastern Shore, and they were saying, oh yeah, they used to play on Sundays. And then everybody would sit down and have a good meal, barbecue and everything else. So that happened all around the country. And I think now that we have social media, which I benefit now because coming in the 2003 era, I was able to travel and meet so many players. And Frank Evans, who became my godfather, played for the Cleveland Buckeyes. He introduced me to maybe about 50 players. And I decided, hey, I need to create something a little more than just me running around doing things. So I created the Negro League Legends Hall of Fame. And it's to educate the young from 2 all the way to 102, because I said, because a few players I've had here, double duty, and Bucky Wallace, they lived to be 102 years old.
All right. And I'm glad you mentioned the young because a lot of them are not aware of the Negro League baseball. And talk a little more about that as far as why it was created and who were the people who created Negro League baseball.
When you go back to the early days, they do talk about Fleetwood Walker as one of the first and Bud Fowler, of course. They talk about them being involved. And this is in the 1900s, early 1900s. And then when you had racism all the way around, it's like everything changed. We go through cycles in this country. So at that time, the players then were banded to play on the field. Later on, probably around 1903, 1907, the folks decided since we're not going to be playing in your league, we're going to try to create our own. And I think what's missing for our young people to connect to that, because basically all the players from that era are gone. And if you go to the library, you want to read a book about 1903, 1907, but you won't find it. And then I think that's what's lacking, number one, enough material out there. And then we really don't have anybody talking about what I coined this, the first era of Black baseball. I know some historians claim that, they weren't organized, but I don't think too many people were organized in 1800 and 1905. And especially in our community, I've had records down from 1909, the Washington Giants, and they were organized. They actually had to incorporate. They also had a fee to pay. So those are some of the things that are missing in history, but you can't just read it. You can't find a book. Find me a book where the Washington Giants is. I found one book, and that's The Negro in Sports, which put out by Asala. And that's the only book I've ever seen, even the Washington Giants in the nation's capital incorporated in 1909. And the only reason why I know that, because I have the actual sealed paper in the envelope it came in. Actually, it's sitting right here in front of me on my camera. And I will send that to you. That's the thing about it. I got to look around for it. It's by Bancroft, and it's called The Negro in Sports. Asala is a great organization, the Carter G. Woodson organization. And they have tried to make that move, education in our school system. But I think it goes back to, you know what? I think everybody, they went home back to the country or wherever they came from, some people from the city, and they go ask, what happened back then? And you'll find out quite a few of them do know about going to a Negro League baseball game because they went to the major league stadiums to play.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the Negro League baseball game. They were pretty exciting, right? And I think they had some really big crowds. And
Yes.
I think Major League Baseball probably felt intimidated a little bit because Negro League Baseball drew so many fans. And it was so exciting. It was an exciting brand of baseball.
That's true.
I was just talking to Dusty Baker not too long ago.
Yes.
And Dusty said that he would like to see more African-American players in baseball because he said it will bring so much excitement, so much speed, base running. And he said he thought that that would be something big for Major League Baseball. Talk about how big that was back in the day.
And what is interesting, even you mentioned with Dusty Baker, I remember I had a conversation with him, and just a little note sidebar. Actually, Paul Casanova was my next door neighbor back in the 60s. As a kid, wasn't introduced to baseball because we didn't have baseball fields in our community. All we did was basketball and football. So we really weren't introduced. And being in the nation's capital, unless you were in the city, you would get that introduction. And I told Dusty Baker, that used to be my neighbor. He said that was one of his best friends. So, and also Dusty knows that my neighbor, he actually played in the Negro League. I didn't realize that, Paul Casanova, until I founded the Negro League. I'm connected in different ways as a youngster. But I think what it's also is hard for our kids to play this game, even starting out. It's a very expensive sport to buy your bat, your glove, your helmet. The equipment is not cheap. A baseball bat, oh no. You put gas in your car for 6 months. Exactly. I didn't realize it was $200-300 for a baseball bat.
It's expensive.
And the glove costs pretty good money. And so what I'm looking at in our communities now, well, basketball is easy. You just show up, they give you a jersey, the basketball, and you show up at a football field. Oh, they got a helmet, some pants, throw some shoulders on it, you gone. And I think it would take the community to get more involved itself and start bringing this program back together by building more baseball fields. My grandson, who is 6 years old, he playing t-ball, and he's a switch hitter. So I'm out there watching them all the time. At least we may get one more to go to Major League Baseball. But they go over to, the international countries now, the kids coming out of Cuba and everything. And what is different for us in America, you got to be 18 years old. You go to another country, you can be 14 years old.
Yeah, that's true.
But the system is sort of very different. If you got a 14-year-old, you're grooming them, you're going to sign them to a contract, but you can't do that in America. So that's why probably another way why we don't see ourselves playing like a game. But going back to the early days in the Negro League, guys would tell me they were 15, 16-year-old playing with the men. They let them come out there, run around. And then some of them have told me that when they were in high school here in the nation's capital, they were all going out there trying to play semi-pro.
Let's talk a little bit about Rue Foster, that guy in the picture behind you. He's one of the people that really got Negro League baseball started, right?
That's so true. And I'm so glad that coming up, you'll finally get to meet his great nephew, which is William Doug Foster Jr., who his grandfather was Rue Foster's brother. They both played in the Negro League and both in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But what is missing when we were talking about earlier about baseball, why our kids are not playing, it's almost like if you left Martin Luther King out of the march, the Great March on Washington, his name was no place around. That's what has happened to Andrew Rue Foster. We would not have Black baseball if it wasn't for his genius, entrepreneurship. He was a manager and player. And without him coming together, and he actually charted the Negro National League in the state of Maryland also. He was a smart man. So I think if we start talking about these icons of the past, the ones that really were the foundation, Andrew Rue Foster is the top of everything. Even if they name or knew something, whatever the Major League Baseball is thinking about, they should name the highest award that they can honor to go back to the past, to the man who worked with everyone to bring about an organization. But it was integrated, Asians, Hispanics, Cubans, they all played in that league.
Yeah, the Negro Leagues let anybody that wanted to play could play.
That's right.
And that's the thing. Talk about, there would be no Jackie Robinson had it
That's
not been
correct.
for Rue Foster, who
That's
started
correct.
the Negro Leagues. I mean,
That's correct.
a lot of young people don't realize that. That's where he started. He and
Exactly
Hank
right.
Aaron, Willie Mays, all those guys played Negro League baseball when they were
Correct.
very young. But let's talk a little bit about the fact that now, real quickly,
Yes.
the Major League Baseball has now accepted Negro League stats, right? That Negro League baseball statistics are now part of Major League Baseball, right?
And it's interesting, they started in 1920 to start, as far as their research and everything. And they also started in the year that Andrew Rue Foster really was the father of Black baseball. And I call that the second era of baseball,
right?
Black baseball. But it's by him, it's the reason now why they do that. His name should be mentioned, like, oh, you talk about Babe Ruth, he was a player. But name some of the managers, name some of the owners of the team, name some of the entrepreneurs. You don't hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But Rue encompassed all that.
So he really was a Black American hero, just an American hero. And our young people need to know about him. But let's talk now about the East-West All-Star game.
Oh, yeah.
Because something I noticed in the past All-Star game a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
The American League starting lineup was all people of color for the first time. I've never seen that, including the pitcher who was Japanese. If you include him, it was all people of color, African Americans and Dominican Americans.
Wow. I missed that.
I don't think that it was mentioned, and I don't know why that it was never mentioned, but that's the first time I had ever seen that. And so that's a great sign for baseball, in my opinion. And your organization, you are sponsoring a big event coming up.
Yeah.
And that big event is kind of a play on the East-West All-Star game that the Negro Leagues first started in 1933.
That is correct.
Talk about this event you have coming up.
Well, it's so amazing about these events. Yes, we do the vintage game that honored the 1933 brainchild, Gus Greenlee. Gus Greenlee was also another dollionaire in that era, businessman, entrepreneur, who decided the same year that Major League Baseball planned to have their All-Star game, well, they had the first Negro League East-West All-Star game. And it's amazing, the winning pitcher of that game was William Hendrick Foster, known as Bill Foster, one of the greatest pitchers of the first era, and they don't even talk about him in the second era, Rube's half-brother. So you know what? And Rube was a great pitcher before even he became a manager. So we have two brothers, the only two brothers that I know of, and both of them from the Negro League era and also played in the first era of baseball, Black baseball. I call that from 1895 to 1919. And that's what I'm focusing on now because we need to know the truth. And then from 1920 on is the second era. But when 1933 came about with Gus Greenlee, Rube had passed. You know what Gus Greenlee did? The Negro National League came alive again because it ended in 1930. 1933, okay, Gus Greenlee brought back the Negro National League, second era, and he also brought back the East-West All-Star game where the greatest players and people just go, well, come and see me if you want to know more.
Yeah, those might have been some of the greatest players that ever played baseball in that game. If you really, I mean, that's a whole nother show though.
That is exactly right.
But let's talk about this event, man. We got about a minute or so to talk about your
very
event.
Good. We're going to have some of the Negro League players out there, but one of the most important person to me to come to be part of this is actually Rue Foster, great nephew. William Doug Foster Jr. is taking grasp of his legacy, and it's so important to have an opportunity to see that next generation grab it, and he's going to walk with it. And I hope everybody come out and take a picture with him because that's that seed. He's part of that seed. And when you look at him, say like, Man, you look even like your great uncle, but also his grandfather, Bill Foster, is one of the greatest pitchers of all time. So we're going to take you back in time a little bit. Come on out there. You know what? And we exercise it.
Tell us where it's going to be, what
It's going
time.
to be at Prince George's Stadium in Bowie, Maryland, the home of the Bay Sox. I want to see you out there even early at 10 a.m. We having a free car show. And then if you come and visit our website, which I know they're going to post up on here, I'll send you where you get some free tickets for that East-West vintage baseball game. And that features some of our local high school students who are graduated. We also have college students, and we have some of the former Major League players come out, and the old Chesapeake League. You all remember down Paul Monkey and all that? We have different generations coming out. And when you don't be surprised when you see it integrated on the field, because basically the Negro League was integrated.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, man. I'll be out there. I'm going to be up in the booth calling some play-by-play. And it's going to be so exciting and interesting as it is every year.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us on Around the Diamond, and I will see you soon.